That bird's a bit too close for me. Here I am again for another video. This time I'm going to talk about wildlife photography. And it's been nice enough I've been able to borrow a lens. Cool little pigeon there. Ah, too dark. But anyway, so got to borrow from Sony a 200 to 600 mil. Also the A9 Mark II. Thank you, Sony. So here I am. We're going to talk about some fun things, some do's and don'ts when it comes to wildlife photography. But first, let's dive right in and get some shots. What do you say? Because they are everywhere right now. Gotta love these ducks and the hens. We got cormorants across the way. And if we're lucky, I might get to see an egret. Well, I have seen it out here. I was coming in and setting up. He's back on the other side of the island. So let's have a talk first. All right. So put down some key notes in my phone that I wanted to go over. First, when you're doing wildlife, landscape, anything outdoors, nature comes first. So your safety, nature's safety, you got to be respectful both ways. With that said, some parks, people feed birds. You're not supposed to. I would rather have a long lens and get them doing their own natural things. It's not as nice of a photo to get a bird in a trash can as it is a bird on a branch. So it's just something to think about in that regard. Now we can talk about you want to minimize your impact on the environment. Yes, I mean, I'm all for respecting the environment. I don't want to cause any grief for the birds, stress, or any other wildlife animals for that matter. So be mindful where you're tracking. You know, I'm in Australia, so I have to be mindful of snakes. Personally, that's just my own stress, I guess. Know the rules. So with that, I like to tell people be mindful of is it an endangered species? So I'm from the States, and as an example, in the U.S., you can only get so close to a bald eagle, especially a nesting one. If it flies to you, I mean, you're supposed to just ignore it. But yeah, things to think about. So if there's any endangered species that you come across or that you're tracking or looking for, make sure you give them their respectable distance, whether it's legally or just by nature. Don't interfere with the birds. So this goes back to the feeding. I try not to feed birds. I try not to give in to luring them closer. And this will also coincide with an app that I'm going to mention up shortly. So with the app that I'm going to talk about shortly, that will go into more about other things beyond feeding them that can actually cause stress for the wildlife. the main thing is just overall try to think about getting the shot without being disruptive. Unlike portraiture or street photography with people, you can interact, you can get acknowledgments, you can ask for the photos. With wildlife, it's not that. You can get a shot without them even knowing you're there. That's usually the better shot, especially in the bigger wildlife things, which I've only been able to track down a koala a couple times personally, and I've seen some wallabies and kangaroos and got them. But with the apps, let me jump into that. There's a lot of apps that people will use for IDing. So one is called Merlin Bird ID, and I'll leave links for these below. But Merlin Bird ID is great because if I am able to capture an image of the bird, I can upload it, and I will actually be able to help me identify the bird if I don't know the species. So that's brilliant. It also has IDing via audio. So if you are in an area and you can hear a single bird making a distinct call, you can actually open the app and record it, and it will give you it tries to make a good idea of what that bird is, and it's pretty good in most cases. Another one that's fun to use is called eBird. They are two different apps, but they actually work together. It's through the Cornell lab, and what that does is it allows you to actually begin a checklist of the wildlife you spot, and not just quantity and what type of bird, but where. And a lot of this is good for wildlife tracking. It's used for research to see, is the habitual birds who migrate, are they migrating? Are they going away when they need to go away? Are they coming back when they need to come back? Also, just general counts. If you're used to seeing the same bird in bounty in a certain location, and then over time you find that they're not there, it's basically helping record trends. And it's cool because you get to have a checklist of all the birds that you've seen over the years. But what's also nice is they have the hotspot feature. And just to give you an idea, I'm in Brisbane, and if that focuses, maybe not. That's the hotspots. All those dots are hotspots. Those are all hotspots. As you zoom in, they get further up. But what's fun is you can tap them. It shows you a list of the birds nearby. And it gives you people who reported them in the past 7 days. And as well as the bird count for all time. So being able to see, okay, this bird, and then you find there's sometimes birds that aren't supposed to be here. And those are the ones that are really interesting because I've seen this a few times in the States. We had a tundra swan, it's a big white swan, that was down in North Carolina, and it's not normally from that area. And it had been going from pond to pond. It had no other birds with it. I was there for a short time, and then it left. Another example was one of the hurricanes that was back in the States this past year blew flamingos from the south all the way north. Flamingos in PA and Michigan and all through areas that you don't see those pink birds. So having these tracking details, it helps over not just you as somebody who wants to go find wildlife, figure out where to go to find certain species, but it helps you find anomalies, and maybe you'll be lucky to capture them. My friend, I've been here for 2 years in Australia, but my friend back in the States was lucky enough to capture some of the roaming flamingos who were avoiding the hurricane. And so that's just, that had to be awesome. Now back to the app. There is one feature that can be controversial. How I told you, you can record the audio and then it can identify a bird, and you can take a photo and it can identify a bird. You can also play the bird's calls. And this is controversial because while it is an exact call representation of whatever bird you choose, the controversy comes into place with, we don't know what it's saying. And so while you may draw birds in by playing their call, you could actually be stressing them. And you're not going to be able to capture a true wild moment for the bird if, as an example, they're territorial and the call you played happened to be more of a headbutting call that drew him or her in of the species to more or less defend its ground. You don't know. Like, there's no bird translator. All we know is it's roughly the sound of a chick, roughly the sound of the adult, the male, the female. You know, we have mating calls we figured out, but other than that, I mean, we've never translated it to English, so, or any language for that matter. So something to keep in mind. It's good to use it to listen, to figure out, okay, was it the bird I heard? Sounds similar, but don't use it, in my recommendation, don't use it to call the bird in. In hunting, you'll see this. You use a duck call called ducks in. You know, you are there for a specific reason to hunt. You might stress them out, but you're probably going to take them home with you. That said, with you with the camera, you're not disturbing them to take them home to kill them. You're taking their photo to move along. So something to keep in mind. Again, it's personal opinion. One I recommend. But yeah. So let's talk about some settings next. What do you say? All right. So there's one drawback. Let me set you back just a little bit more. One drawback to the location that I'm in right now, and that's, unfortunately, is one of the areas people tend to feed the wildlife. So I have a lot of the little birds that keep trying to get near me. So I'm always trying to avoid them. So what I'm looking at here is straight across. You can see this tree here. We have some wild cormorants in there. And if they are in flight, I do want a high shutter speed. But these are not. So I can actually shoot relatively slow. And so that's probably the first setting I like to talk to people about. You have a lot of people who will shoot in aperture priority when it comes to wildlife. I like to shoot in shutter priority. Personal preference. But my reason is I set my aperture to the lowest it can go. So this one at 600 mil is 6.3. And I like to keep my shutter speed as fast as possible to freeze the action. And the issue, though, is like this situation, with the image I showed you, they're sitting still for the most part. Now, if I wanted to freeze them and they're in flight, getting action, I tend to start around 1/1250 to 1/1600 and up. Obviously, light dependent. And that will help you get good, sharp images, even on their wingtips, when you have something like the Sony A9 that can track on to the bird. And so, if we're lucky, we'll see something flying. Until then, I'm going to see if I can get anything unique. They're all just over there cleaning themselves. There's one up on top. That one's cool. Oh, I see a white egret. Finally. You won't see him on there, but he is there. Way across. All right, I got focus. Let's move and see if we can find him in another angle. All right. So we had two. I had two pop up while I was walking over here. So this island here stretches out. There's one just in the grass to the left and to the right. We got ducks right here at the front. You're too close to me, ducky. I can't focus that close. All right. So we're gonna see a different angle on the camera outside. Wait on the egrets. There's one right there. So another setting that I tend to do personally is I will shoot auto ISO. A lot of people want to keep their ISO as low as possible. And while, that's usually the case for most things. I missed him flying. Usually the case for most things when it comes to animals, it's unsuspecting, so you don't know what you might get. For me, I'd rather capture them than miss. Duck sitting on the fence. Two more down here. Oh, that's a clean shot. Turn around. There's your head. And his buddy way down yonder. That's so nice. All right. Very cool. They love this area. There's bird craps everywhere through here. There's a bunch of ducks in the field. But that's not what I'm here for. Although, if I can get one in flight. Did I get it? I got him flapping. Yeah. I'll put the image up on there. You can see. Pretty cool. I guess the reason I'm after the egret is because he sticks out more. But even a flying cormorant would be nice. It's just being aware and watching. So let's shoot and see what happens. So, as you've seen, lots of ducks, cormorant here and there. I'm getting good photos, I think, but that one bird just will not leave. The egret won't leave. So, while we wait just a little bit longer, have you shot wildlife before? Let me rephrase that actually. Have you photographed wildlife before? Well, I mean, if you're a hunter, have you shot wildlife before? Uh, Something else, you don't need to have this. So this is extremely nice. 2 to 600 with the A9, the tracking, the fast frames per second, just on blackout free shooting. Sony's brilliant with their gear. You don't have to have this to start out to even take wildlife photography. I recommend minimum a 300 millimeter lens. Most kits these days you can acquire that fairly cheap, and whether it's crop or full frame, micro four thirds even, that's kind of where I recommend starting. And I think you have a better feel for getting out and just starting to get the shots. You know, I'm lucky in a place like this, I don't have to use this. I've actually photographed these birds with a 300 mil, even a 250 on my old Canon. So it is completely doable. And I recommend you getting out and you giving it a try. Pack some snacks, a drink. You have half the setup I will. You don't have to carry around a camera to record yourself with. And I will say, this, I don't know how heavy it is in kilos or pounds, but it's a lot. So as you saw, I was hiking earlier. You feel it. You're switching hands. You know, I mean, I'm carrying my backpack on. I have this in one hand. This camera with my tripod is actually lighter than this. So, something to be said for having smaller gear. You can go further. You're not as tired from carrying it. So, one second. Let's see if I can get this duck just right here, 200 mil. He's just like fixing his feathers. Very cool. See what I mean? They're just everywhere right here. And like I said, this is fabulous, but they're going away from me, so it's not as nice. But that's just the ducks they took off. But so get out and try to actually photograph wildlife. You can even be in your backyard. The hardest one that I've had, besides the egret, because the egrets, they will come out. They usually roost in this tree where the cormorants are and just chill, and I get photographs all day. Of course, I turn the camera on, hit record, and now they're camera shy. They're hanging out on the far side of this pond where I can't get to. So, hey, respecting their boundaries. I can't get over there. I'm not going to try to trek over there and disturb them. But I have the hardest time capturing is actually the little sparrows, about yay big, and they are fast. They are crazy fast. They zip around. They turn on a dime. You know, this can focus on them, but by the time it focuses on it, they turn. I can't keep the lens with them fast enough. That's the problem. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, the gear has gotten so well that it can pin a bird that's super fast, but I can't move the lens with it fast enough. Well, I think I'm going to end the video here, and I hope you've gathered some information, whether it's keeping your shutter speed high, fast enough to freeze the action, 1/1250 and up, really helps to keep them crisp. You need more light for those situations. Slow it down if they're sitting still. You want to shoot wide open aperture as best you can, as most you can for that matter. And your ISO is up to you. I personally, like I said, auto ISO. And check the apps out. They're informative. You can learn about the wildlife that's around you. You may always see a bird and you don't know what it is. They will at least help you figure that out. So give that a look, give it a try. Comment below if you go out and you get some wildlife photos. I'd love to see them. Put your Instagram below. I'll check them out if you put it on there. And yeah, I will see you all in the next video. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Probably not with this though, although I wish it was. But yeah, not this time.